All right, what's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with this week's American Express betting preview. And what I want to do is I want to show you something that I've been working on that I hope to unveil on the site at some point. But I think it can really help with some of our outright bets, maybe some top 10 and maybe some top 20 stuff. So let me just stop talking and show you what I'm looking at here, because I don't think people realize how hard it is to win an outright. You're betting on guys that are going to win a very small percentage of the time, like less than 5%. Some guys a lot less often than that. Trying to get this right and trying to determine what value means can be difficult. So I've built this spreadsheet. So if you're watching on the video, I'm showing a spreadsheet right now. This is very similar to what I did for last year's Tour Championship when we tried, because there were starting scores. I was trying to project or predict the likelihood that someone who starts, 7 shots back could actually come up and win the golf tournament. And we actually said Rory McIlroy is probably the furthest guy down. He started 5 shots back that could realistically come out and win this golf tournament without having like a historically something that's in his range of outcomes. And he ended up doing that. Ches Reavie made us nervous for a little bit because he started shooting up the leaderboard the first couple of days, but he would have needed not only a historically good performance for Ches Reavie, but a historically good performance in like the history of golf that we've never seen before. So what I've done here is I've kind of emulated that spreadsheet to create, this is not a tournament simulator, but it's more like a value predictor, or I'll come up with some cool name for it before I put it on the website. But I've just been messing around with it in Excel. And what it essentially does is it brings over all of the golfers and their average strokes gained, their standard deviation of strokes gained. And what it allows us to do is kind of use a normal distribution model to determine how likely a golfer gets to a winning score. So what does that mean? For example, and this is probably a bad week to show this off because the American Express, we only have strokes gain data from one of the 3 courses. This is probably something I should have saved for next week or the week after. But anyway, what you can do is essentially say this is how many strokes a golfer is going to need to gain on the field to win the golf tournament. Historically, it changes each week. Generally, it's about 13. If you gain 13 strokes on the field on the PGA Tour, you're going to win a lot of golf tournaments. So that's the number that I have plugged in. The winner of the American Express is going to gain 13 strokes on the field. And then using historic data for each one of these golfers. So each one obviously listed out differently here because some are more consistent, some are more volatile where they have huge upside and they have huge downside. What I've done is I can say how often is Ricky Fowler, for example, going to gain 13 strokes on the field. And the answer to that is about 9.3% of the time. Let me be very clear. This does not say Ricky Fowler will win the tournament 9.3% of the time. This says Ricky Fowler can get to 13 strokes gained 9% of the time. 3 guys might get to 13. Obviously, all 3 are not going to win. So I want to be very clear about that. But really, it just gives you an idea of the types of golfers that are capable of actually getting to this number. So I'm comparing that percentage where how often they're going to be able to get to that number and comparing it to the implied win percentage based on their odds. So if Ricky Fowler is 12-1 to win the golf tournament, that's about 7.6%. Like he would have to win more than 7.6% of the time for you to make money on this bet over infinity. Okay. If you bet this 1,000 times. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm comparing how often they can get to the winning number versus their implied win percentage. And I'm finding guys that have a higher percentage chance to get to this number than their win percentage. So Ricky Fowler, small value in outrights because he's going to get to 13 strokes gained, nearly 9.5% of the time, which is about 1.6% more than the implied win percentages. Someone like Sung J M, probably not a great bet. He has not shown the ability quite yet to get to 13 strokes gained, but he's being priced as if he has. Okay, he's being priced as if he's going to win this tournament over 5% of the time, which is probably unlikely. Paul Casey, a little bit of value. Then you start going down. Like, here's Francesco Molinari. No surprise here. He's the book that I pulled from had him at 40-1. I've seen him 33. I've seen him 40. 40 would be a pretty good number because he would still be valuable there. I have him winning, or I'm sorry, I have him getting to 13 strokes gained 4.3% of the time, but his implied win percentage is 2.4. Now, actually, what I think I can do if I've built this right, if I wanted to hand adjust this and change his win odds to 33%, or his Vegas odds, yeah, so he would actually still be a value. He'd be a smaller value. Like, what number would we not have to bet Molinari at? 25 would still be pretty good. Okay, so like 22 is like the break-even point, where that is about fair price on Francesco Molinari. But if you're getting him at 33, you're getting him at 40, there is probably value in that. You can see some of these guys who are just like more volatile. So like Andrew Putnam actually checks off as a value here. Now he's only going to get to 13 strokes gained 3.16% of the time, but he's being priced as if he's only going to get there 1.5% of the time. So what's interesting is I also have these, the two standard deviations in either direction to show you Andrew Putnam, when bad, can be really bad, but when good, can be really good. So his range of outcomes is basically losing 9 strokes or gaining almost 14. Now, someone like who's a good example here? I don't know. Denny McCarthy is probably a pretty good example. His range is losing 6 to gaining 10. So he can't gain as many as Andrew Putnam, but he's not going to lose as many either. He's a much more consistent golfer. So that's the type of stuff that I want to be looking at here. And as you scroll down, I mean, the odds are still very, very short, right? Like, there is technically value on Siwoo Kim, but he's only going to get to 13 strokes gained, 1% of the time. So what I plan on doing with this is building this into a tool on the website where you not only have the ability to do this for win odds, but for top 10 and top 20. Now, the thing is, we have to be able to assign, it's kind of guessing or predicting or using history or whatever, how many strokes gained it's going to take to get to each one of those platforms. So it might be 13 to win, 10 to finish in the top 10, or 7 to finish in the top 20, for example. Now, the way that I've built this here is I can adjust this. So the way I want to build it into the site is that you can adjust it too. So if I change this to, hey, you're going to have to be really, really good this week. You're going to have to gain 15 strokes on the field. That eliminates a lot of golfers. Actually, I think it eliminates, no, not everybody. Kevin Chappell technically gets there 1% of the time. And that makes sense. His range of outcomes is one of the largest. Like, he's a good GPP type golfer. He's going to miss the cut and finish dead last, or he's going to shoot that 59 and go absolutely bonkers. So like, his range of outcomes, massively huge. So no surprise to see that he has a little bit of value, but he only gets there 1% of the time. Charlie Hoffman, believe it or not. Scott Harrington, but I only have 22 rounds of data on him, so that might just be a small sample size. So you can kind of see what this turns into. Like, when you go to 15 strokes gained, Ricky Fowler only gets there almost 5% of the time, under 5% of the time, but he's going to have to win over 7.5% of the time to make it worth it. Now, if you go the other way, if you take it to 10 strokes gained, you're only gonna have to gain 10 on the field. A lot of guys come back into play here. I mean, literally everybody in the top 30 except for Matt Wolff and Brendan Todd. But I bet you if I change the range for Brendan Todd, to be more recent and kind of shortened up the data here, I bet you he'd be able to get there too. So this is a really interesting tool. I like the idea of this, and then you being able to come in and kind of adjust on the fly who you think is valuable and who you think is not. So this is kind of step one. I wanted to put it out there and kind of show where I might be heading on bets for outrights this week, but also some of the things that I have in the works as well. That's the straight like analytical side of this, but I want to kind of give you some of my emotional aspects of it too. I really like Scotty Scheffler for DFS at 28 to 1. He's someone that's very interesting, but I have already fired bets on Von Taylor at 50 to win outright, and then also top 5, which I actually think is kind of a better market for him. I did find a Sungjae versus Ricky Fowler where Sungjae was getting plus odds. He was plus 110, so I took a bit of that. I'm trying to think who else. I avoided and faded and bet against Phil Mickelson in all the matchups that I could find on him. And I think that's all I have for now. I'm waiting for the tee times to come out, especially for something like first round leader. Keep in mind that La Quinta historically plays much easier, the easiest course on the PGA Tour. So if your book of choice does not delineate between first round leader at La Quinta versus the other places, there could be a lot of value out there for you for that. So I would definitely check that out. So I'm going to wait and see. And then I imagine, live betting will probably be pretty popular this week because there's going to be so much value with the course rotations and if the books can handle that or not. So there you go. That's the betting preview for this week's American Express. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, let me know if I'm on the right path with this kind of like tournament predictor, outcome predictor thing. Give me a holler. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment below or tweet me. It's at RickRunGood. Best of luck this week. Talk to you guys next time.